Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 3 waiver wire targets for the 2020 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're talking about waiver wire targets, the running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end positions. Because again, though there was some incredible fantasy football to have watched and witnessed last week, there were so many injuries that took place on Sunday. I mean, the amount of injuries that knocked out young players with bright futures. Saquon Barkley torn ACL. Courtland Sutton torn ACL. Christian McCaffrey is going to miss multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain. Paris Campbell out for indefinitely until otherwise noted. An MCL injury to Raheem Mostert, an ankle injury to Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, there were so many injuries, and I know that's not even half of them. There were so many injuries that took place this past week in Week 2, that again, it's ever so vital to make sure that your lineups not only have the proper players in it, but to make sure that the bench depth that you have and the talent you have on your bench is ready to be able to be plugged in at a moment's notice in case of an injury occurring. It's ever so important to have handcuffs for your stud running backs. It's ever so important to make sure that when bye weeks are coming along, I mean, in a couple weeks, we have bye weeks, that your bench is ready to be able to be put into your lineup and play, because again, that is going to be the difference maker in winning and losing. Because for those of you who are losing Saquon, you are going to be at a significant disadvantage. For those of you who are going to be missing time from players like Michael Thomas, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, that is going to put you at a disadvantage. So you have to try to recoup as much as you possibly can via waiver wire, maybe trades. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We'll start with the waiver wire targets. Before we begin, I want to thank all of you for your continued support, helping us surpass 25,000 subscribers. The next goal is 26. We're just going to keep chugging away. I really do appreciate you guys continually supporting the channel. Coming out on Sunday mornings for the live stream from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. PST, hanging out and asking questions and contributing to the entire experience. So again, for those of you who support on Patreon, I really do appreciate you guys a lot. So thank you again for helping keep the lights on. And without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start talking about my Week 3 running back targets to begin the episode. Starting off with my number one, it's James Robinson, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had an incredible game this past week. 16 rushing attempts for 102 rushing yards, had a rushing touchdown, and even got work in the passing game. That was something that we did not see in Week 1. And we thought maybe Chris Thompson would be a guy to do that. Chris Thompson did score a touchdown this past week, and even with that, James Robinson, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 18 receiving yards. Just that extra sprinkle of points. That's all we want. Especially in a full PPR, the amount of value that kind of gives James Robinson in comparison to so many other running backs, it's a difference maker, to be honest. So James Robinson, going forward, I mean, this coming week, Thursday Night Football, plays against the Dolphins. I'm 100% happy starting James Robinson as a flex play. Again, the only reason I'm mentioning him is because I went and I looked at his ownership on Yahoo, and it's pretty low considering this is a guy that's been the starting running back of the team for the last 2 weeks. I would have thought he'd be owned in more leagues. That being said, he's my number one running back this week. The next running back I wanted to mention is someone we also talked about last week, Joshua Kelly. Again, because of this entire scheme, Joshua Kelly is slowly turning into the Melvin Gordon of this offense, meaning he is going to deal with the first and second down work, even with Austin Eckler being sprinkled here and there. Joshua Kelly had 23 rushing attempts yesterday and 2 receptions, a total of 25 carries for this rookie running back in an offense that honestly wants to run the ball. Their head coach is a former running backs coach and a running back himself, so obviously they want to run the ball. And sure, Joshua Kelly's yards per carry on the ground wasn't great, 23 for 64. He still was able to get work in the passing game, 2 receptions for 49 yards, pretty much surpassing 100 total yards from scrimmage. Joshua Kelly is a very valuable prospect as of right now because, again, opportunity leads to success in fantasy football, and that's especially the case for the running back position. So, again, we throw out Joshua Kelly's name out there. Again, he's not owned in very many leagues, so he needs to be picked up immediately. Darrell Henderson, another Los Angeles running back, is our number 3 for this week because, again, Cam Akers getting injured with the rib injury, that's not great, but he could miss some time here. And then Malcolm Brown also was out-touched by Darrell Henderson, and Malcolm Brown is dealing with a finger injury. So if that is going to impede him from getting more touches, and Darrell Henderson is going to step up like he did this past week, Darrell Henderson, 12 touches on the ground, 81 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 2 receptions for 40 yards. That is the productivity and opportunity we want to see out of this Rams backfield. Again, whoever the starting running back of this team is, or whoever's getting the most touches, is going to score a touchdown. I mean, that is kind of what it's been for the last couple of years and the last couple of weeks that we've seen. So as of right now, Darrell Henderson kind of gives us a little bit of a boost in terms of if you are a Cam Akers owner, perhaps you can go pick up Darrell Henderson and recoup some of the value there going forward in the next coming weeks. Again, they play against the Bills this week. I don't think that's too difficult of a matchup for their offensive line, who's been looking better and better as the weeks have gone by. Played pretty well against the Philadelphia defense, which is a pretty stout front seven. The next running back I wanted to mention was Antonio Gibson. Again, even though he's a rookie running back, and though his ownership is really low, guys, Antonio Gibson is going to potentially be the starting running back of the Washington football team. I mean, sure, Peyton Barber in week 1 had those 17 carries, but where did Peyton Barber go this past week? Nowhere. Gone. It was a combination of Antonio Gibson, who led the team in terms of rushing attempts with 13 for 55 and a touchdown this past week, and J.D. McKissic, who looked good, but they want to give Antonio Gibson the ball. There's a reason why he's leading the backfield as of right now. So the more opportunity he gains, the more experience he gains, the better productivity we're going to see for him, Antonio Gibson, as the weeks progress. As of right now, I think Antonio Gibson, looking at his ownership numbers, is far too low. I know many of you play in smaller leagues. Maybe you don't have as many bench spots, but Antonio Gibson is a great option at the running back position if you're struggling due to an injury or something of that exchange taking place. Our next running back, and perhaps maybe the most important for some of you, is Mike Davis. Mike Davis is the handcuff as of right now to Christian McCaffrey. And due to the fact that Christian McCaffrey got injured with that ankle injury, he's going to be missing time. Mike Davis will be taking his opportunity, and this is why you want to handcuff your starting running backs, because again, injuries are always possible. And Mike Davis, the amount of work that he was able to get yesterday in the passing game surpassed anything that Christian McCaffrey had accomplished this season with Teddy Bridgewater. The fact that Mike Davis caught 8 targets, had 8 targets and caught all 8 passes for 74 receiving yards. Mike Davis is a bruiser back. How is he getting work in the passing game? I have no clue, but we love to see it, especially for those of you who are Christian McCaffrey owners. If you're just trying to immediately fill in, the opportunity there, then Mike Davis is going to have that said opportunity. But the thing is, don't expect Mike Davis to be Christian McCaffrey. Sure, he might get 15 to 16 touches, but he's not going to have Christian McCaffrey-like numbers. But the opportunity will be there, and hopefully Mike Davis can act upon it in the coming weeks that Christian McCaffrey is out. Now, another player that's going to be filling in specifically for Saquon Barkley, Dion Lewis, as of right now, is the handcuff to Saquon Barkley, the guy that is going to have the immediate touches in this backfield. We've seen Saquon in the past, especially last year, get injured and miss time, in which Wayne Gallman came in and did some work. But Dion Lewis, immediately as soon as Saquon went down, came into the game, had 10 rushing attempts for 20 yards, had a receiving touchdown, but his biggest contribution is in the passing game as usual. 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 36 receiving yards, 9 yards per reception there. Pretty good average, and considering the fact that this team isn't going to probably be running the ball very often from here on out, there is a chance that Dion Lewis could get some value as a PPR back going forward. I know that there was a report earlier today about Devontae Freeman potentially going out and working out for the Giants to potentially be signed this regular season because of the injuries that are taking place. So there's always a possibility that Devontae Freeman could win that job if he goes there. But again, we're holding out to see any information regarding that. As of right now, Dion Lewis would be the starter in the New York Giants backfield. The next player we want to talk about is a guy that's also going to be a starter in his respective backfield because Raheem Mostert is currently dealing with that MCL injury. Raheem Mostert is probably going to miss this week because he strained his knee. Tevin Coleman also another knee injury. So who becomes the starting running back of the San Francisco 49ers? Well, it's Jerrick McKinnon. And Jerrick McKinnon over the last couple of weeks has played well, scored 2 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. That in itself, a very interesting stat. And to be honest, when you play against the New York Giants this upcoming week, I know there's a lot of injuries in this offense, but they have a great offensive line. They're going to be pounding the rock as per usual. And Jerrick McKinnon is a 3-down back and has the potential to continue to feast. He had 3 carries for 77 yards yesterday and a rushing touchdown. Of course, when you have a breakout run for a touchdown, it makes a pretty big difference. But overall, I mean, that's 2 back-to-back good weeks for him, and hopefully he gets more opportunity going forward. The next player I want to talk about is Myles Gaskin. Again, I talked about Myles Gaskin on my Hidden Gems because the more that the Miami Dolphins are getting blown out, the more work he's going to see, the more snaps he's going to play. Yesterday against the Buffalo Bills, he had 7 rushing attempts for 46 rushing yards, great average there. He had 7 targets, 6 receptions, and 36 receiving yards. Sure, 6 yards per reception, that's not great. That's not efficient numbers. But the bonus to this is that in a PPR format, that in itself, his PPR work is 9.6 points on top of the rushing work he's going to get. I continue to see him get more and more targets in this offense, especially as long as Ryan Fitzpatrick's at quarterback. They play against Jacksonville this week. Not a bad flex option going forward. The last running back option that I wanted to mention is Jeff Wilson Jr. because, again, like I mentioned, Raheem Mostert's going to be out. and so is Tevin Coleman. If Jimmy Garoppolo is to miss time this week and they put in Nick Mullins, they're going to probably want to lean on the running game a little bit more against the Giants. So Jeff Wilson, who we've seen come into this offense and be a productive running back, could step up, be activated this week, and be a pretty good 1-2 tandem and 1-2 punch with Jerrick McKinnon in this offense. So I'm looking forward to that and potentially seeing what they're capable of doing this upcoming week. And those are the running backs I kind of wanted to mention as potential pickups. If I did not mention a player specifically here, it's probably because their ownership numbers are too high, or perhaps it's like Devontae Freeman and I'm not certain about where he's going to land and I don't really want to take a risk there. Potentially we could talk about Frank Gore, but I don't really want any Jets on my team. I know he touched the ball 21 times the other day, but again, it's a very risky prospect to kind of deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move on to our wide receivers for this upcoming week. Starting off with our number one wide receiver for the waiver wire is Robby Anderson. Robby Anderson was incredible. 10 targets, 9 receptions, 109 yards. That's back-to-back weeks of 100 receiving yards of plus 9 targets. That in itself, automatic pickup. It does not matter going forward. The fact that Christian McCaffrey's injured means that this offense is probably not going to function as well, meaning Teddy Bridgewater is going to have to throw more. Robby Anderson, my goodness, is he going to be an extremely valuable prospect going forward. We have Russell Gage as my next option. Russell Gage, in week 1, similar to Robby Anderson. The question was, is it a legit, breakout? Are we actually seeing production, or are we seeing like a random lucky week? To be honest, we tested it. Russell Gage, again, with low ownership right now, is a great option. Had another 9 targets. In week 1, had 12 targets, but again, 9 targets for 6 receptions, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Julio Jones disappeared against the Dallas Cowboys. But again, Calvin Ridley's always there. Hayden Hurst had a breakout this past week. And Russell Gage still consistent in that slot position as their number 3 wide receiver in that offense, really producing. The next option here is going to be Bradin Cooks. I know a lot of people drop Bradin Cooks, and I was looking at his ownership. It was about like 60-something%. That's way too low for Bradin Cooks, and hopefully that can go up. The fact that Will Fuller saw exactly 0 targets this past week is unbelievable to me. And that just makes me think that, wow, even if he's not injured, there's still a chance that Will Fuller can somehow, get screwed over. But Bradin Cooks has been a receiver that has caught 1,000 yards 4 seasons in a row in the past. I know he's on a new team, but he's eventually going to perhaps take the number 1 receiving spot of this team, like I was talking about all off season. This past week, 5 receptions, 95 receiving yards against a very good secondary for the Baltimore Ravens. So hopefully Bradin Cook, if he's available, is a guy that you want to invest in and pick up. The next option, N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry had an incredible Sunday night game. I mean, we had an idea that perhaps the Seahawks were going to take a pretty early lead and force Cam Newton to have to throw the ball. And if, in fact, you were going to force Cam Newton to throw the ball, my goodness, N'Keal Harry, Edelman, both of them feasted. N'Keal Harry had 12 targets, 8 receptions for 72 receiving yards. That number is only going to increase as this young wide receiver who spent very little time gaining experience his rookie season is going to continue to just learn, get more chemistry with Cam Newton, and eventually be a red zone threat for this offense. I know the red zone threat currently is Cam Newton and only Cam Newton, but going forward, I expect that to change. They're going to diversify their offense and open it up a little bit more and allow guys like N'Keal Harry to feast in one-on-one coverage there. He's my number 4 option going into this upcoming week, another name we mentioned from last week. The next wide receiver I wanted to talk about is Corey Davis. I mean, the fact that Ryan Tannehill is playing as well as he is, it just gives Corey Davis value. Like, Corey Davis caught 3 passes, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Not an incredible week, but he scored a touchdown for the first time since week 7 of the 2019 season. Great, fantastic. Corey Davis played well. But that being said, how well Ryan Tannehill plays is going to dictate this offense, and he's been incredible. He had a passing touchdown to Corey Davis, to Adam Humphries, 2 to Jonnu Smith, and it did not matter that Derrick Henry really wasn't Derrick Henry yesterday, and that A.J. Brown wasn't playing. So going forward, again, Corey Davis has value if A.J. Brown's going to miss time, and even if he doesn't, he's still going to be a part of this offense and could have fantasy value going forward. Put his name out there in comparison to some of these other guys. Now, Keelan Cole is a name that we have to mention because even though I thought week 1 would be the lucky Keelan Cole week because we really hadn't seen Keelan Cole produce since Blake Bortles was a part of that offense, Keelan Cole somehow, someway has managed to be a fantasy relevant wide receiver. In 2 weeks back-to-back in a half PPR, he's put up 13 plus fantasy points. This past week, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 58 receiving yards, and a touchdown, putting up better points than DJ Chark in the past 2 weeks. And to be honest, seems like he's one of these go-to guys for this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And as well as Gardner Minshew's been playing, 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. The running game is working for that Jaguars team. Their defense is pretty solid to an extent. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it would have been. Let's put it that way. Keelan Cole, not a bad option going forward. My number 6 wide receiver, waiver wire target this upcoming week. Cole Beasley is my number 7. I mean, Cole Beasley he's just a PPR guy. He's a guy that if you need a flex, if you need a wide receiver 3, you could easily throw him in there and he's going to get you 10 plus points because that's what he did all of last season. And the fact that Josh Allen has gone about having 2 back-to-back MVP-like performances. I know they've been against average defenses. You play against the Jets, you play against the Dolphins. You're going to look like an MVP. I could probably look like an MVP against them. It's a joke. But relax, everybody. It's a joke. But you get the point. Josh Allen in back-to-back weeks has thrown for over 300 yards, 700 total yards plus over the last 2 weeks passing. What does that mean? That means if you're a receiver in this offense, you're going to feast. John Brown, Stephon Diggs, they've both balled out for the past 2 weeks. Cole Beasley's only getting better, getting more work in this offense, and it's sustainable. It's a sustainable enough offense as of right now to where it can function with 3 wide receivers and 3 relevant fantasy wide receivers, and that's beautiful to see. So Cole Beasley's my number 7. Isaiah Ford of the Miami Dolphins. He plays against the Jacksonville Jaguars this upcoming week, but with Devontae Parker probably pulling number 1 coverage, it's interesting to see that Isaiah Ford pulled in so many targets in comparison to a Preston Williams, who we all thought could have been a nice breakout play this year. But Isaiah Ford has come out and has definitely delivered 9 targets, 7 receptions, 76 receiving yards yesterday against the Buffalo Bills. Had himself a pretty good game. Again, Ryan Fitzpatrick always shows up against the Bills. And if, in fact, Isaiah Ford is to continue to get some opportunity in this offense and or be a relevant option going forward, it's not a bad name to kind of keep your eye out on. He's not a guy that you're automatically picking up, but if you are in desperate need, if you're playing a deeper league, not a bad option there. We have ourselves, our final option is KJ Hamler. Like I mentioned before, Cortland Sutton tore his ACL. He's out for the season. So that leaves this offense in the hands of Jeff Driscoll, number 1, as their quarterback, because again, the quarterback of that team got injured. Drew Lock dealing with a shoulder injury is going to be week to week. We'll see where he is at in his current progress going forward. But with Phillip Lindsay injured, with Cortland Sutton injured, with Drew Lock injured, this offense is pretty much going to be surrounding Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler, another one of these rookie wide receivers that hopefully can step up. If in fact he does, in the absence of a Cortland Sutton, could definitely be the number 2, or maybe even step up as the number 1 wide receiver of this team. KJ Hamler this past week had himself a decent game, 9 rushing yards, 7 targets, 3 receptions for 48 receiving yards. I mean, again, it's nothing beautiful. They played against Pittsburgh. It was a backup quarterback. Maybe he gets more experience and or opportunity in the following weeks. But again, keep an eye on him as another wide receiver option. All right, so we move on to our week 3 tight end targets going into the 2020 fantasy football season. And to be honest, the fact that I went to Yahoo and I was looking at tight end ownership and their percentages, and I saw that Jonnu Smith was only like 63 to 65% of Yahoo leagues, was so alarming to me that I just as a PSA, this is a public service announcement. If Jonnu Smith is not owned in your league, please, for the love of everything in this world, go pick him up. He scored 3 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks, 12 targets in the past 2 weeks. A.J. Brown's been injured. Derrick Henry hasn't scored a touchdown this year. It's going all in the direction of Jonnu Smith. Please pick him up. This is just a public service announcement because it is unbelievable for me to think that he is not owned in more than 85% of leagues. It's unbelievable. Another name that was only 65% of leagues, Mike Gesicki. How is he only owned? He was a top 12 tight end last year, guys. Why is he not owned on your team, at least as a backup? He had 1 bad week and people are dropping him like a fly. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yesterday, breakout performance, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 130 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. That's the Mike Gesicki we're used to. When he plays against the Patriots, not as good. But when Ryan Fitzpatrick is, firing on all cylinders, Mike Gesicki is his guy. That offense was really playing well. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick played well yesterday. But Mike Gesicki somehow owned only 65% of leagues. Please pick him up. I don't need to say anything more. You guys know how good he is. Huge target out of Penn State. A great player. Now, Another one of these players that stepped up in week 2 and has established themselves is Dalton Schultz. He is the backup to Blake Jarwin. And though Blake Jarwin got hurt last week, a lot of us weren't 100% certain if Dalton Schultz could step up, because if and when after Blake Jarwin went down with the ACL injury, Dalton Schultz came in, had 4 targets, 1 receptions, wasn't relevant. This past week, my goodness, was he relevant. While the Dallas Cowboys were making an incredible comeback because the Falcons choke as hard as any other team and organization I've ever seen in my entire life, Dalton had 9 receptions, 88 receiving yards, and a touchdown. An incredible performance, and perhaps could be relevant going forward in this offense. He played very well, and that target count, unbelievable. Our next option here going into this week, we have ourselves Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed, if in fact George Kittle is to get hurt and or this offense wants to use more 2 tight end sets, could be a huge play going forward. The fact that he had 7 receptions on 8 targets and 50 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, I mean, Jordan Reed's back, baby. This is the first time that I've seen Jordan Reed perform since when? 2017? I mean, we really haven't seen these kind of numbers for him. I'm glad to see that he's back and given the opportunity and is acting on said opportunity. So it's great to see Jordan Reed produce, and hopefully going forward could be more and more relevant in this offense that definitely needs some receiving help, to say the very least. The next option is Drew Sample. With CJ Uzomah, who was the former starting tight end of the Cincinnati Bengals, tearing his Achilles and being out for the rest of the season, Drew Sample stepped in last Thursday against the Cleveland Browns, got 9 targets, 7 receptions for 45 receiving yards. Though those numbers are not the best, the opportunity is what I look at, and I'm very excited about the potential of going forward as a backup tight end. I don't mind having Drew Sample in a decent matchup. If he gets more work, it'll give me more confidence in him. But again, just another name that I wanted to throw out. And another name that could be a relevant tight end option going forward, Mo Alie-Cox. We remember Mo Alie-Cox is a guy that a couple years back, when Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle were doing their 1-2 tandem, Mo Alie-Cox would come in when one of those 2 guys were injured, and with Andrew Luck, he would produce. Now, the thing is, with Phillip Rivers always likes his tight ends. With Jack Doyle being injured, having that neck injury, the question is, how long will he be out? Is he going to be, coming back sooner rather than later? Mo Alie-Cox this past week, 6 targets, 5 receptions on 111 receiving yards. Led the team in receptions and receiving yards, especially after Paris Campbell got injured, T.Y. Hilton went AWOL, and Zach Pascal wasn't able to do much. Nyheim Hines, where were you? I don't remember even seeing you on the field. And anyway, that team is just pissing me off. Regardless, I don't want to get off track. Let's go ahead. Let's cover the quarterback position going into week 3. As of right now, my number 1 again is going to be Ryan Tannehill. I don't think that should really be a surprise. He's been playing absolutely out of his mind. If in fact you are going to have a quarterback that is going to be on a bye week soon, perhaps picking up Ryan Tannehill is a good option. Now, just to kind of throw it out there, Ryan Tannehill has a week 7 bye week. So if you're going to pick him up, just make sure that you're prepared for that and make sure that your other quarterback doesn't infringe with that kind of bye week timing. As of right now, I mean, the fact that he's been playing as well as he has, 4 passing touchdowns past week, and the fact that he has been consistent since week 7 of last year till now, he has just been the same level of productivity, and it's not slowing down. That's just, it's so promising that he needs to be picked up. He needs to be. The fact that he's only owned in 45% of leagues is a shame. And I think he's such a great quarterback going forward in fantasy, just like he was last year. The next option is Gardner Minshew. The fact that you can throw 6 passing touchdowns in the past 2 weeks combined and ball out as much as he has, it's unbelievable. Yeah, he threw 2 interceptions, but those were on tipped passes. I'm not even bugged about that. That doesn't even bother me. He had over 100 more passing yards than Ryan Tannehill and played very well for fantasy purposes. And to be honest, going forward, another relevant player. And he plays against Miami this week, so I'm excited about the potential of Gardner. We have Jared Goff as my number 3 quarterback option. Goff's a little sketchy, but here's the thing. He plays against the Buffalo Bills secondary. Byron Jones went down with an injury. Byron Jones is not going to play this upcoming week. Tre'Davious White could definitely be exposed. The fact that Jared Goff threw 3 passing touchdowns to Tyler Higbee, of all people, unbelievable. He honestly could have had probably a 4th passing touchdown if they didn't hand it off to Robert Woods on the goal line. That was literally the only work Robert Woods got the other day, but He saved his week with a touchdown. Regardless, Jared Goff this upcoming week against Buffalo seems like a pretty good play in my eyes. Just throwing it out there. Joe Burrow, famously this past Thursday threw the ball literally 60 plus times. Now, is that number going to always happen every week? Probably not. You don't play against the Denver Broncos every week. This upcoming week, you play against the Eagles. Can you play against the Eagles and produce? I just feel like the way that the Eagles are playing and the way Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense is playing, it kind of feels like they're both going to be struggling to score the whole game. And even if they're struggling, perhaps maybe the floodgates open for both teams and we get a shootout of sorts. And maybe that kind of gives a little bit of value to Joe Burrow for those of you who are interested. But the last two options I wanted to mention simultaneously because, again, we have to remember that bye weeks are just around the corner. So if you are looking for some bye week quarterbacks, in about a couple weeks, Daniel Jones, Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to have some pretty advantageous matchups. And in those matchups, we're going to potentially see both these guys who are missing their starting running backs have to pass the ball nearly the entire game. And if that's the case, Daniel Jones is ready for it because, again, he has Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate coming back. That's a great wide receiver core. Teddy Bridgewater, even without Christian McCaffrey, still has great wide receivers in Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Robby Anderson, Ian Thomas that they very slightly utilized but could get some more work going forward. I think both these guys going forward as options when, in fact, bye weeks are coming along, these are some streaming options that maybe you want to pick up a little bit earlier based on your quarterback dealio in bye week. So just wanted to throw those out there, kind of give you guys a heads up. But that's pretty much it. I want to thank you guys for the incredible support. If you have not yet already, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be making fantasy football content here on the daily for the entirety of the season. Make sure you go down below, click the like button. Make sure you click the bell notification button. It'll just let you know when my latest video has dropped. Just gives you a notification on your YouTube page in the top right corner. Outside of that, I really do appreciate you guys supporting the channel. It really makes a world's difference to me. I'm really working hard, trying to just get out this content as much as I possibly can. It is very difficult as a one-man army here, but I really do appreciate you guys' continued support, helping me get a lot of opportunities out in the fantasy landscape and in the industry as it currently stands. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on that. Again, thank you, everybody. Again, for the incredible support. If you're looking for more content from myself, you can go down below, check out the Patreon, watch the video there. You don't have to immediately join. You just have to watch. If you're interested, then you go ahead and join. But outside of that, thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been a very interesting week for week 2. A lot of injuries. Really hurts my heart, honestly. It really does. But you know what? We're going to have to move on. We're going to have to continue to stay strong and try to build as strong of a fantasy team we possibly can going forward in order to help us capture some 2020 fantasy football championships. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.